Hello students, welcome you all to discussion on a new session regarding for the module number 2 known as energy exchange in turbo machines. Already in the previous sessions, you have been discussed regarding introduction to turbo machines where you have learned the working principles of turbo machine. Then we have gone to dimension analysis, then the problems for the model analysis and many other things we have learned. In this particular module, you will be learning regarding how does an energy exchange takes place in a turbo machine with the help of the discussion of. So we'll be discussing regarding the Euler's turbine equation, which is the basis for the energy exchange in turbo machines. Then we'll be discussing the alternate form of the Euler's turbine equation and some of the components of those Euler's equation which is responsible for energy transfer across the rotor. So in today's session, we shall start initially with Euler's turbine equation. Then we shall study regarding the velocity components at the inlet as well as the outlet and how you can deduce the Euler's turbine equation with having some of the assumptions. So all these things we'll be discussing one by one. So as I said, this is the subject in turbo machines, the subject code 18M54. These are my email IDs as well as my WhatsApp number. So if you have any queries, you can send me an email to this email ID or even send me a message to this number also. So with these things, we shall start today the discussion of the things on energy exchange in turbo machines. So firstly, I told the basic equation is nothing but a Euler's turbine equation, which is responsible for deriving the energy equation for energy exchange which happens in the turbo machine. So if you observe here in the picture, there is a disc, there is a rotor. This rotor is mounted on a shaft. If you observe carefully in this picture here, yes. So as I said, if you observe carefully in this picture, this is the rotor. This is the rotor, and this rotor, it is mounted on a shaft. This is the shaft. So here this rotor is rotating at an uniform speed of omega along this shaft itself. Here the fluid enters this shaft, say at position 1, it enters this fluid element and then it comes out of the rotor at point 2. So this is the rotor which is mounted at the shaft, which is mounted on a shaft. Now to reduce the Euler's turbine equation, we are taking help of the Newton's laws of motion, which is applied to a fluid which is traversing the rotor. So I told when the fluid enters at this position at point number 1, if you observe here, this is the inlet and it is traversing along this entire radius. We call it as radius R1. This is that point along this radius R1 it is traversing. Similarly, now when it comes out of the rotor at this point to here, then here it is traversing along this particular radii, that is radius R2. So here if you observe at this particular radius, this is the outer radius. Yes, along this radius R2 it is coming out of the rotor. Along with this one, even we are applying the law of conservation of momentum to the fluid element. We are applying the law of conservation of momentum to a fluid element. So with the basic relationship of Newton's law of motion to an fluid which is traversing the rotor as well as the law of conservation of momentum, we are deriving the Euler's turbine equation with having some of the assumptions. We shall see these assumptions as we move further one by one. But before that, when we apply the Newton's law of motion to the law of conservation of momentum, what we are going to get? Let us see. We get an equation known as the force, which is equal to d into mv divided by dt. So here we get the equation as force is equal to d of mv by dt. These are the things you are going to get applying the Newton's law of motion. So let us see how do we get here. So as I said, this is the equation, and when we apply the law of conservation of momentum, we get that as in this particular form, that is df is equal to dim of with respect to dt, that is time t dt, or you can write it in this form also, that is m delta v by m delta t, or it is nothing but the mass flow rate m dot delta v. To proceed with the analysis of this inverse turbine equation, we need to have some of the assumptions. What are the assumptions? Yes. So here, if you observe carefully, we have some of the assumptions. This assumption number one is they say that the flow is steady. The first assumption said is flow is steady. What it means? It means that throughout this entire rotor, the fluid flow is almost steady. It is flowing at time t itself, which means at any point within this rotor, the fluid is not going to stop or not going to accumulate, which it means that the flow is steady. First important thing. Second assumption, it is said that the heat and work interactions between the rotor and the surroundings, whatever heat and work interactions is going to occur, it also occurs at what rate? It is also occurring at a constant rate itself. And the third important assumption is it is said that throughout the analysis, the velocity is uniform, with a uniform velocity is there, which is having an over an area normal to the flow itself. So this rotor, it is rotating at an uniform speed of omega, which you can see here right now. I have shown it here. It is rotating at an uniform speed of omega itself, which is an uniform velocity normal to the flow itself. Now, when we want to begin the analysis of this particular rotor, just I will show you how it is being done here. Suppose if I say that this is my point number one here, and this is the point where the fluid is going to enter at this particular point. So now this is that point. So if I traverse this as the direction of this, traverse the direction of this rotor, and say this is my center of the shaft, then this is my radius r1. So at point 1, at radius r1 from the center of the shaft, at this point the fluid is going to enter, which I have shown you here. That is this particular thing here. The fluid is going to enter at this particular point, at this radius, which I have shown here. Now here the fluid entering, we call this particular fluid as the absolute velocity which is entering the rotor. We call it as absolute velocity. It is in this form. That is V1, which you can see here. This is the absolute velocity, V1. Now, if you observe carefully in the figure, the velocity which is this is your axis, this is the axis of your shaft around which your shaft is going to rotate. This is the center of axis around which it is going to rotate. So the velocity which is axial to this shaft, we call it as axial velocity, VA1, which means it is in this fashion. Now it is in this fashion. This is the axial velocity, VA. That is VA1, or you call it as VA1 axial velocity. So this is your axis now. This is your axis. Around this, the rotor is going to rotate. Now, as I told that, we are marking the point number 1 along a tangential component. So here, this is our traversing direction. So whatever the line you are going to mark, it becomes the tangent to this particular curve. So the tangent to this particular curve is this one. And this tangential component, we name it as VU1. We name it as VU1. We call it as tangential component at the inlet conditions. Tangential component at the inlet, VU1. And another last flow component, that is the velocity normally which you are observing, that is this velocity. Particularly we call it as this one, normal to the axis of the shaft. This is the axis of the shaft. So if you observe the normal axis to the shaft, we call it as the flow velocity or the meridional velocity. That is this type, this direction. We call it as the flow velocity, or it is the meridional velocity. We write it by symbol as Vm1, or we also you can write it as Vf1. This is Vf1, not Rf1. It is Vf1. So I will be taking Vf as my flow velocity for my further discussions. In some textbooks it has given Vm also. Similarly, even for the tangential component, I was telling you, even for tangential component, in some textbooks, he has taken it as a discussion as Vu1, or even he has taken as Vw1. So I will be considering for my discussion as Vu1 as my tangential component itself. This is from the inlet point of view. Similarly, if I discuss from an outlet point of view, just I will show you here. For the when the fluid is about to leave the rotor, it is at point number 2. What do we get? Let us see here. So as I said, you suppose let's say at this particular point, 2, now the fluid is going to leave the rotor. At this particular point, it is going to leave the rotor. So if I traverse the direction of this at radius r2, how I get in this particular form, this is the radius of the rotor. Say this is as r2. Now please see here carefully how I am going to resolve the components at point 2. So if you observe carefully, as I told, the velocity r to this particular curve, the tangent which I have drawn, if you observe carefully, the tangent to this particular curve, this tangent, we name it as tangent to this particular curve, it is Vu2, that is tangential component at the outlet side, Vu2. Then this is my axis, this green colored line, already I have told you. Now with respect to the axis, the flow velocity which is happening along the axis, what do we term with that particular term? We call it as the axial velocity along the axis, the velocity whatever is flowing, we call it as the axial velocity component, that is Va2. Then normal to this axis at 90 degrees, whatever the velocity is there, we term it as the, what we term it as? We term it as the flow velocity or the meridional velocity, that is this particular thing that is here as this particular line, we term it as the flow velocity at the outlet or the meridional velocity Vf2, or even we term it as Vm2 also in some textbooks. So then what is your absolute velocity V2? This will be your absolute velocity V2, that is here. This is your absolute velocity V2. These are the things which I have shown here. So if you observe carefully once more, just I am showing you the representation of this particular thing on this diagram itself here. This flow velocity, it is here along this particular direction. Vm2 or flow velocity as Vf2 also, we name it as in this fashion. Similarly, if I go for the analysis of the axial component, this is my axial component. So where is it shown? I have shown it here. The same thing I have shown here, the axial component. Then discussion of the tangential component. So for the tangential component, here, this is the arc. So to this arc, the tangent which I have drawn, this is my Vu2 or Vw2 also in some textbooks, as I have told, this is the tangential component. Then absolute velocity along this particular curve, that is V2. This you can see here, I have the same related here. So this is the analysis which, if you are having difficulty, you can draw in this format in the examination also and highlight the terms. So in this way, we are analyzing the velocity components at the inlet velocity triangle as well as the outlet velocity triangle. Please remember, now onwards in the turbo machines, the components with the suffix 1, what you are going to write there with respect to the inlet velocity triangle. With the suffix 2, they are with respect to the outlet velocity triangle. Once again, I will tell you the components with the suffix 1, they are inlet velocity triangles. They are inlet velocity components. With suffix 1, inlet velocity components. With the suffix 2, they are outlet velocity components. Now, nodes in turbo machines. Please do remember these things. Now, let us go to the discussion of how we can deduce the turbine's equation. So this is the thing I told you, the absolute velocity V. For the inlet and outlet, we are having three velocity components. One is the axial component, which acts along the axis of rotation, as this is my axis of rotation. So this is, we call it as VA, at inlet VA1, at outlet it comes as VA2. Similarly, a radial component, we take it as VM, or you can take it as even VF also. As I told you, we can take it as the flow velocity. For our discussion now onwards, I said that I am going to consider the radial velocity or the velocity as VF as my flow velocity. You can take it as my flow velocity. Radial component is nothing but it is the flow velocity VF itself, which is perpendicular to which one? The axis of rotation, that is this particular component, It is VF, VM1, or even VRD also in some textbooks. So I will consider VF as my symbol, velocity of flow component. Here also we have velocity of flow component, that is at this particular position of the outlet triangle. Similarly, the third component which we have left for our discussion is the tangential component. So the tangential component, we write it as VU along the tangential direction of the rotor. So this is the tangent. Here the tangent is being drawn here. Similarly, here the tangent is drawn here for the outlet also. This is the tangential component. So with the resolving of these forces, we are going to now write the equation. Let us see. Yes, the first important thing is at point number 1, that is at this point here. At point number 1 here, say let us assume that M1 is the mass of the fluid which is entering the rotor at a radius R1. That is, when we traverse this one, we say this is at radius R1 with the tangential component what? VU1 for time T. Remember, M1 at this particular point is the mass of the fluid entering the rotor at radius R1 for a time T with velocity component of tangential as VU1. Similarly, M2 be the mass of fluid at this particular point. This is point number 2. Here it is the mass of fluid which is leaving the rotor, which is coming out of the rotor. At what radius? If I traverse this one, it is like this rotor radius. It is of rotor radius R2. From here, if I measure, this is R2 with the velocity component what? VU2, and having the same time T itself. That is the reason we have said that the flow is the steady case. Then the net force which is going to be calculated here acting on the rotor according to Newton's law of motion is given as in this form. The net force acting on the rotor according to Newton's law of motion is calculated as, it is in this form now. F is equal to dm d differentiation of mu by dt with respect to time dt itself throughout the process. And another thing I have told is here no mass accumulates in the rotor, which means continuous mass is flowing under steady case itself. Or I can write this as m of v1 u1 m1 vu1 by gc into t minus m2 vu2 by gc into t. Here the term gc, it is per unit weight. So this is a small algebraic manipulation which we are doing just to get the value in terms of energy per unit weight as in the terms of head itself. That is the reason that we take here the value as GC. We take the symbol as GC. Please note that the GC, it is not acceleration due to gravity. The GC, it is weight per unit. It is weight per unit. GC is weight per unit, and this we are considering this term GC for our algebraic calculation purpose. We take this term, and it is not acceleration due to gravity. This is not acceleration due to gravity. Please remember, and its value always GC value is equal to one itself. It is weight per unit weight. Per unit weight it is energy per unit weight. GC is energy per unit weight. So therefore, I say you once more that please do remember that GC, the term GC, it is with respect to energy per unit weight. GC is energy per unit weight. Per unit weight. You may have a thinking that GC means acceleration due to gravity. No, it is not due to gravity. It is just energy per unit weight, and always its value, GC value, is one itself. Just for our simplification purpose, we need to take this symbol in our calculation procedure now onwards. So anywhere you can write the value of for the first steps, we take the write the symbolical as GC. Its value is one itself, but we cannot remove that GC from that equation because it is representing energy per unit weight. Energy per unit weight. So in this way, the force for the mass fluid entering and mass fluid leaving, we write it as M1 Vu1 by Gc into T minus M2 Vu2 by. Why the minus sign here? Because the mass which is entering the system, that is the mass which is entering the system, it is considered as the positive, whereas the mass of the mass component of the fluid which is leaving the system is considered as negative. That is the reason that we write it as M1 Vu1 by Gct minus M2 Vu2 by Gc into T. As it is the living out of the system, the component becomes negative sign, that is minus. That is the reason that we write it here minus symbolically. Then once we go for further things, such as we can write that, as I told, the condition that whatever the mass is entering the system, the same mass is coming out, which means there is no mass accumulation. So therefore, I can term that M1 by T or M2 by T or M1 is equal to M2 is equal to M itself. So with respect to time, we can write this as M dot. With respect to time, I can turn this as M dot. So why is this I have taken? So once again, I am telling you that whatever the mass of fluid is entering, the same mass of fluid is going to come out. That is M1 is equal to M2, which is equal to M itself. As this is with respect to time, this is with respect to time, what I will do is I will put a dot, which means it is a mass flow rate itself, the same thing which I have taken here right now. Next, why I have taken? Because of a steady flow case. As I told, as the flow is steady, the mass flow rate M1 is equal to M2 is equal to M dot. Now, what brings your equation? So once I put this one, that is M1 by T and M2 by T is equal to M dot, my equation gets reduced to this form, that is F is equal to M dot by Gc into Vu1 minus Vu2. That is the tangential velocity components. Or you know that if you take the torque, how is the torque? It is the force acting into the radius of the perpendicular direction. So the same torque with respect to this particular equation, how I can write now? Torque T is equal to F into R, which means M by Gc. How I can write now? I can write this as in this form also, that is M by Gc into Vu1 into R1. Why? Because at point 1, so this is my rotor where at point 1 the fluid is going to return. So Vu1 at radius R1 minus similarly Vu2 at what radius the fluid is leaving out? At R2. That is at second R2 the fluid is leaving out of the system of the rotor. So this now when I consider the torque, the equation with radii R1 R2, it gets reduced to this form, that is M by Gc Vu1 into R1 minus Vu2 into R2. And the rate of energy transfer, how we are rating the rate of energy transfer? It is the rotor is rotating at a speed of omega, angular velocity omega. So the product of torque and angular velocity, it gives us the energy transfer. So for the torque, which is rotated at an angular speed or angular velocity omega, we term that omega into t is the thing, but it is representing the energy itself. Why? Omega unit, you know, RPM, angular velocity is RPM, that's per second, and torque is in meters, Newton meters. So the resulting unit you are getting in terms of the joules itself. Omega is a unitless quantity, and this we are having the torque. So we are getting the rate of energy transfer as E naught is equal to omega into t. So omega into t, E naught is equal to omega into t, and we have the value of t here already, which you can see I have written here. So I can substitute the value of E naught is equal to omega into t value becomes m by gc into the other parts we need to write here, that is vu1 r1 minus vu2 r2 vu2 r2. So on simplification, considering the point of omega and torque together, my equation of energy transfer E naught becomes as this form, as I told you, omega into m by gc vu1 r1 minus vu2 r2. Now if I say that this omega, angular velocity omega, for a radius r1, we get the tangential velocity u1. When I multiply the omega inside the brackets, omega into r1, we get the tangential velocity as u1. Similarly, for omega into r2, I get a tangential velocity as u2. The same thing I am going to do now here. So I get it as omega into r is tangential velocity, as I told you. So if I take inside the bracket the equation energy per unit weight, energy per unit weight m dot by gc is given as u1 vu1 minus u2 vu2. That is the equation number 3. Or the energy transfer per unit mass in terms of, if I take it as the mass fluid m dot outside E naught by m dot, if I take it as in terms of mass fluid, that is in this form, that is energy per unit mass means what? This one. So the resulting term I get as this itself. So now my equation, it gets reduced to this form. Energy per transfer per unit mass of fluid symbolically as E. So now I get it as E is equal to U1 VU1 minus U2 VU2 by GC, or this energy is thing, it is the enthalpy itself. Both the meaning are same itself. So the energy per unit mass of a fluid, energy per unit mass of fluid can be turned as U1 VU1 minus U2 VU2 by GC, or this is also equal to delta H naught. All are same itself. Therefore, this equation number 3 and equation number 4, they are different forms of turbine equation, and this equation 4 is the Euler's turbine equation. Is the Euler's turbine equation. So general forms. What are the general forms? Equations 2, 3, and 4. They are the general forms of Euler's turbine equation, or you can say it simply an Euler's equation. And these equations we are especially using for the power generating machines, such as the turbines, or for the power absorbing machines, especially the pumps, compression fans. So with respect to the type of machines, there is a small algebraic manipulation in the energy equation and how it happens. So always you know that if there is a power generating machine, that is a turbine, the value of energy or the work done, it should be always positive. So if this should be positive according to this equation, now what should be the condition? U1 VU1 for the power generating machine I am saying right now, it should be always greater than U2 VU2. This is for what case? For power generating case. This is for power generating case. Similarly, if I have for power absorption devices, for power absorption, then my for power absorption means energy should be negative. E is negative. So when E is negative, what is the condition? U1 VU1, it should be lesser than U2 VU2. Then you get negative work, means power is being absorbed. So this condition is applicable when we have power absorbing type. That is for these cases. These are things you need to know now. So for power generating type, as I said, as the work is to be positive, always U1 VU1 should be greater than U2 VU2. If then the equation is this form, E is equal to U1 VU1 minus U2 VU2 by GC. If I am having a power absorbing type, then what happens? U2 VU2 will be greater. That is the reverse vice versa. And that time our equation becomes in this form, minus of negative energy you get, because as the power is being absorbed, which means you have the work is done on the system, then the negative work done, that is minus of, or on simplification, we can write this equation as E is equal to U2 VU2 minus U1 VU1 by GC. So please do remember this one, this particular equations which you are seeing right now on the screen for power generating machines, we are writing, especially when we are having the turbines, we are writing this equation U1 VU1 minus U2 VU2. But if you are having a power absorbing devices, if you're having the power absorbing devices, then we write this particular equation, especially when we are having pumps, when we are having the blowers, when we are having fans, the work has to be done on the system. That is the reason that we get the negative work, and this is the resulting equation. Please do remember, students. So today we shall stop here, students. In the next session, I will be discussing regarding the components of energy transfer. The components of energy transfer. So in the next session, we'll be discussing on the components of energy transfer, and in that which is involved the dynamic and the static components. So in the next session, we'll be moving ahead. Thank you, students.